I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Welcome to the International Saturday Morning Community Forum. Each and every week, we try to bring inspiration, information, and then we try to engage you in the struggle for civil rights, human rights, and social justice. Well, this week, there are a number of issues that we will talk about, which should drive you to the polls. It should encourage you to get ready and vote early if your state is an early voting state like Illinois. We took several thousand people to the polls in Chicago on October 1st. Wherever you are, check to see if your city, your state, your county has early voting. You want to vote early so that you don't have to deal with the weather, you don't have to deal with long lines. You can vote early. Now, we're going to be talking about this mail-in balloting today because some of you are confused, you don't know, you're getting misinformation. So we're going to have someone from the Board of Elections from Chicago just to talk about some of the issues with mail-in balloting, what you need to look for, making sure that you sign your ballot. You can't have your grandchild, your child sign the ballot for you. You have to use certain color ink depending on the jurisdiction that you're in. We want to make sure that you understand the issues involved with voting by mail. And you have to check with the county or the election board in your city and county to make sure that you're meeting all of the requirements. You don't want any problem with having a quote-unquote spoiled ballot. We're going to talk about the census to some degree today. We're going to talk about the upcoming Peachtree Summit in Atlanta. You'll hear from our Southern Regional Director, Attorney Robert Patillo. You've seen him week after week, and he's going to share with you the power-packed agenda that we're going to host virtually next week. Our Silicon Valley Summit coming up. You're going to hear about all of that because we're doing a lot of things to keep you informed on both economically, want you to know about public policy. You're going to hear from Dr. Todd Eury. He's going to share a real update and analysis of the Breonna Taylor case in Kentucky. We're all over the country doing our work. We've been distributing masks sponsored by the Ford Motor Company, and so you'll see a little bit about that mask distribution. We thank Ford Motor Company for making sure that we're able to provide some measure of PPE, personal protection, to people who are vulnerable. Masks are becoming very expensive now. And so when you think about all of the work that we're doing, one of the things that I want you to help me do, this is, we're coming up on a historic birthday. One of the people that I think fights harder than anyone for everyone but himself. Reverend Jackson wants to celebrate his birthday with you and I. And how can he do that virtually? He is saying to us, I don't want presents for myself. He doesn't want things for himself. He wants you to invest in the organization. He wants you to become a member. And he's saying not just him to become a member, he wants everybody in your family, everybody on your job to join PUSH so you can be a part of our consumer army. We got a fight to wage. And so Reverend Jackson, and I'm whispering because he doesn't know that we're planning a big membership drive for his birthday. Some of you, you can sell 79 memberships right now to either children in your family, seniors in your family, or your friends, or people on your block, in your church. We need you all to help us sell more than 7,900 memberships a day. Reverend Jackson needs to celebrate his birthday. He's not asking for a personal gift. He wants memberships for the organization. Why? Because the more members we have, the more things we can do. The more things we can do, the better we can serve and meet your needs. Won't you help us? And you can do it really easily. You can go to rainbowpush.org and click membership. You can text the word PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444. Or you can call us. And because some of you say, well, you don't want to go on the internet, you can't do all that, call 773-FREEDOM, 773-FREEDOM, and tell us that you want to donate, you want to join, you want to be a part of this army for change. We thank you. Stay tuned. We have a lot to share with you, and Reverend Jackson will be on today. Wait on it.
Built off of hard work and sweat. This city is not only my city, but it's your city. This city thrives forward. The beauty of my city is in the people of my city. The beauty of my city is in the different ethnic groups, ethnic foods, neighborhoods from the south side to the skyline. This city is everything. The streets are where artists, poets, and magicians roam when they seek inspiration from this place. But this city has trouble sometimes. Yes, this city cries. I can hear my city's woes when the wind blows every time another soul is lost to violence. This city has emotions in the deep depths of its lake, sending waves across the sand higher and higher each day, and the atmosphere is letting us know we have no time to waste. This is our city. Let's generate a generation of greatness through our youth. Together we can make everlasting change, because we all live here.
Greetings, friends. This is Pastor Joseph Bryant Jr., Director of the Rainbow Push Silicon Valley Bay Area Office, Push Tech 2020, National Sports Director, and just grateful for the opportunity to serve in partnership and in collaboration with our amazing leader, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, doing some fantastic things in the Bay Area under his vision, under his guidance. We're able to reach out and feed people on a weekly basis. We are so grateful for our collaboration with the San Francisco African American Faith-Based Coalition that is partnering with the City of San Francisco and New Deal and other cooperative agencies around the city in order to feed thousands of people every single week through the local church. And so the church is active, even though we're not having worship services indoors just yet. We are getting the word out and we're getting the food out to people that need to be fed during these times. We have fed thousands upon thousands of people over these past 6 months of sheltering in place. We've been able to make our food service justice initiative available throughout the Bay Area, and we're doing it every single week. And not only are we here at Calvary Hill Community Church, where I serve as the pastor and where our offices are located for Push Tech 2020, but several other churches are involved in this process. And so we give a shout out to all of them and the vision that they have provided to partner with us to make sure that folks are being fed, underserved folks are being fed, seniors are literally getting their boxes brought to their front door. It's like manna from heaven for them. Some of our collaborations with community groups, with people that typically don't get included in distributions and are not in the system, so to speak, we're able to reach a whole lot of them as well. So we're thankful for that opportunity. Not only are we feeding people physically, but we are able to educate our young people. We have our community learning hub that has opened up, and we have students coming into the building that are able to get Wi-Fi, to get connected with Zoom, be able to go into their virtual class, have a tutor work with them, be supervised. Parents don't have to worry about if their child has to stay home alone or find childcare. We are providing a resource to them to make sure their child is safe and sound and learning. And so we're grateful for that opportunity to have the Learning Hub. We're grateful for the feeding program. We're grateful for the continuation of building collaboration and relationships. So many organizations are looking to do social justice types of activities, reform all the companies, and even with the sports industry. We thank you so much for those organizations that have reached out to us. We've heard from the NBA bubble. They've been doing such an amazing job with getting out the vote. We're thankful for organizations like PICO and others that are pushing voting agendas, and we've been able to collaborate with some of their electronic and virtual meetings and spreading of the good news of we want everyone to vote. So this is a critical time in our history, a critical time in our world. We want to make sure that we're continuing to mask up. We want to support, and we have been supporting here locally. As nationally, we had a distribution this week. Locally, we've been giving out bags of sanitizer and masks. And so we're in it to win it. We're making sure that what we do is serve you, and we're doing it in every way we can. And we're also going to celebrate, as you know, on October 22nd, 23rd, the 5th year anniversary of our Push Tech conference. So great things happening in the Bay Area, despite the difficulties, in spite of the pain of the pandemic, in spite of the crisis. God has been faithful. He's been using our leader, his voice, his values, his platform to speak truth to power and to empower us to do great work. And so we're thankful for the opportunity. Join us at our Push Tech conference. Continue to do as Reverend Jackson says, which is keep hope alive.
Hello, I'm Attorney Robert Patil. I'm the Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition Southeast Region in the Atlanta office here in Atlanta, Georgia. I want to give you guys a quick update on many of the things that we are working on here in Atlanta. All of us have heard all the public health warnings saying that we will not be safe until there is an effective vaccine, which is rolled out nationwide to prevent a continued spike and continued outbreaks of coronavirus. On October 5th, we will be having the fourth part of our healthcare town hall series with Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's part of the coronavirus task force. He is the person who is the leading expert in the world, in fact, on containing the spread of pandemics and these viruses. And we'll be having a conversation with us on October the 5th at 2 p.m. With our panel to discuss particularly how this works for the African-American community. So we want to ensure that those of us who live in the regular world, in the regular community, are fully taken care of and have full access to all the medical advancements that are going on currently. Additionally, the Rainbow Push at Atlanta will be holding our 21st annual Creating Opportunities Conference on October 8th and 9th. This year will be a virtual conference that will take place over Zoom. You'll be able to register at rainbowpushatlanta.org and also rainbowpush.org org. And the reason it's important to bring together these diverse sets is that our community is never hit with simply one storm at a time. We are never dealing with one fight. So while we're also fighting against a pandemic, which disproportionately affects the African American community, we're fighting against an economic depression where 60 million people are out of work, which is particularly hard hitting the Black community, as our unemployment rate is always double what the general population's unemployment rate is. For more information on these, as I said, visit us at rainbowpushatlanta.org. Follow us on social media. Feel free to email myself, rpatillo at rainbowpush.org, or Trina Heathington, Heathington at rainbowpush.org, our program coordinator for the Atlanta office. And as always, keep hope alive.
Avoid the lines and make your home your polling place.
Now, during this pandemic, every voter in Illinois has the option to vote by mail or to hand-deliver their ballot return envelope to an early voting site. If you apply online, the Chicago Election Board will email you information so that you may track when your application has been processed, when your ballot has been mailed to you, when your ballot is in the mail back to the election board, and when your ballot has been received and counted. Request a vote by mail ballot by applying online at chicagoelections.gov or by sending in the mail-in form. Let's practice voting by mail using a sample ballot. Next to each candidate's name is a number. Then, to the right of each selection on the ballot is an oval. To mark a selection, use a standard blue or black ballpoint pen to fill in the oval. Don't use a red pen, as the scanners cannot read red ink. Select only one candidate for each office, unless the instructions say otherwise. For example, for this office, you may select up to 3 candidates. The write-in space is for writing in or voting for a candidate who is not on the ballot. If you write in a candidate, fill in the oval just as you would for a candidate whose name appears on the ballot. After completing your ballot, place it in the return postage paid envelope. On the ballot return envelope, print your name and address, and then be sure to sign and date the certification. And remember, your vote by mail must be postmarked on or before Election Day. And new for this year, instead of mailing your ballot return envelope, you'll be able to hand deliver it. This is how it works. Starting October 1st at the Loop Super Site at Clark and Lake, and on October 14th at all other early voting sites, you will be able to walk in, bypass any waiting line, and directly deposit your ballot return envelope in our new secure drop box. Sign, seal, and deliver your ballot envelope all in one day. For a complete list of Dropbox sites, visit chicagoelections.gov/Dropbox.
What if I request a vote by mail ballot, but then change my mind and decide to vote in person?
If you decide you would rather vote in person, take your vote by mail ballot to an early voting site or your precinct polling place on Election Day and let them know you prefer to vote in person. If you requested a vote by mail ballot and have not yet received it, you'll be able to vote in person after completing an affidavit.
If I vote by mail, can I also vote in person just to make sure my vote counted?
Absolutely not. It is a Class 3 felony in Illinois to vote or attempt to vote more than once in the same election. Remember, you can check your status of your mail-in ballot anytime at chicagoelections.gov/vote by mail. If you have more questions, call us at 312-269-7967 or email us at votebymail@chicagoelections.gov.
In this stormy season of violent campaign rhetoric, we're called to be steady in the face of the whirlwind. There's a tug of war for America's soul. We have a clear choice: take down walls of separation, build bridges of hope and unity. Love must trump ignorance and fear and hatred and violence.
Our vote is our voice. Let's march the polls together, keep them alive. Let nothing break your spirit, never surrender. Vote, 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 and keep hope alive.
We're here today in partnership with the Ford Motor Company to provide our community with masks. These masks are essential to people's survival. We are trying to make sure that the Rainbow Push Coalition, in conjunction with Ford, is providing those individuals that need the most assistance and the most help with the sufficient amount of supply of masks so that they can go about their daily lives. As you all know, regular flu in and of itself is very detrimental and dangerous if you're not protected. And with the coronavirus, without having immunization, without having a vaccine to help fight the virus, it becomes a further enlargement of the pandemic that we have. We want to make sure our community has what it needs in order to get them through this winter and through this pandemic. And we thank our partners at Ford for supplying us with the mask, and we will be doing this as long as it's needed.
Good morning. We are in the midst of a major drive to get more members, more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those incarcerated, change the policies that impact students attending colleges and universities, if you want to be a policymaker, then you need to join Rainbow Push and join by paying your $35 right now. Some of you watch us every week. You listen to us on the radio. You're viewing us in social media. We need you to become a member. It's only $35 a year. If you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, we've awarded more than $10 million to scholars year to date. What do you have to do to give and support Push? It's really very simple. You can go to rainbowpush.org if you're on a computer and press donate. Give any amount. Every dollar is important. You want to talk to somebody, call us at 773-256-2775. You can give right now, any denomination that you choose. You can text the word PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444. Text on your cell phone. Most of you have a cell phone. Just text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving. Or call us 773-256-2775, or go to rainbowpush.org and just press donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.
Hello, I'm Perez Hilton. Did you know that more people in the United States check their Facebook and watch the Super Bowl than exercise their right to vote? We've got some serious issues to deal with. So how come so many of us don't even bother to vote? Is it because we don't care? Or maybe it's because we don't know our history.
So let's go back, way back. Our country's first election came after fighting for our independence, a fight that cost many lives, but it was worth it because instead of being ruled by a king, we were finally able to make our own laws.
But not everybody was allowed to participate. You see, back then, you had to own property, be white, and a man in order to actually vote. Now, things continued that way for about 80 years, until after the Civil War, when slavery was abolished and all men were given the right to vote.
Now hold up a minute. Just because we had the right to vote didn't mean we could use it. See, all these new voters wanted to participate, which threatened the people in power and their ability to stay in power. So they tried to stop us with violence and shady new requirements like literacy tests and poll taxes. We had to fight for nearly 100 years before the Voting Rights Act passed, which finally outlawed these dirty tricks.
And you weren't the only ones that had to fight for your right to vote. Somehow women got left out and had to organize and fight state by state. Until we took our fight to Washington and finally got our right to vote all across the country. And even once the laws guaranteed every person the ability to vote, you still had to be 21 in most states. So when our government began drafting people under 21 to go fight in Vietnam, they realized their lives were at stake and they had no say. Young people all across the country rose up in protest and demanded that everyone over 18 should be allowed to vote.
And since then, young people's votes have been crucial in deciding lots of big elections. Like in 2008, when a black candidate had a real chance to become president, young people showed up in record numbers. And every year, we make up a larger share of the voting population, giving young people more power, but only if we participate.
So let me break it down. Together, there is so much we can decide, like whether or not we should go to war, or how we spend our money, and how we power our lives.
We can determine who has the right to marry, and who has the right to choose, what possessions should be outlawed, and whether or not we should legalize.
It's up to you to make your choices and shape our future. If we sit on the sidelines, then others will make it work for them instead of us. So let's make our voices heard.
So what would it take for you to vote?
Illinois' old way of taxing income is unfair and inadequate. Most other states and the federal government have a fair tax system. Because we don't, working people now pay almost double what wealthy people pay in taxes as a share of their income. That's wrong. And it doesn't raise enough revenue, forcing cuts to schools, public safety, and jobs, while pushing property taxes up. But this November, we can turn the page on the broken old way when we vote yes for fair tax. By passing the Fair Tax Constitutional Amendment this fall, we can ask wealthy people, the top 3%, to pay a little more on income over $250,000 a year, while everyone else, 97% of tax filers, get a tax cut or pay no more than they do now, helping to lift the burden from working folks, easing pressure on property taxes, and raising $3 billion a year to invest in schools and other shared priorities. The old way is broken. Let's turn the page to a better future and vote yes for fair tax.
I'm here to talk to you today about the fair tax. Some might ask, why a fair tax? What's wrong with our tax system just the way it is? I'd like to outline a few things for you to think about, to hopefully inform yourself about, but more importantly, to make a decision, a conscious decision, to vote in favor of a fair tax for the state of Illinois. When we look at the history of our state and what we have experienced over the last decade, the seesaw of up and down budget crises, school closings, mental health centers closings, jobs lost, jobs not created, homes, and the ability to be trained and educated and live a decent life has been compromised. in large part because our state is under a tax system that does not tax the wealthy as it should, and again, puts the burden on those of us who make less than $250,000 a year, which again is about 97% of us in this state, on a constant effort and responsibility and burden of paying more in taxes than the wealthiest 3%. That's not right. I don't care how you look at it, how you shape it, frame it. It's just not right. Now, what could we do if we had a fair tax structure? Well, let me give you a few examples. We could put more money into education, more money in education for all of our children throughout the state, which would then mean we might not have to raise property taxes, for example, because generally when we're short on funding for education, where's the first place we go to look for it? Property taxes. So I know for me, that is a good thing. Then, human services. So there are so many human services that depend on funding from our state to help to provide not only the services that people depend on, but services that people in our communities deserve, such as health systems that are not only affordable, but quality health systems that can help people to prevent some of the illnesses we have, and which have, quite frankly, surfaced a lot in the last 6-7 months because of COVID-19. They've become more aware, or more obvious, if you would, that they exist because of COVID-19, but they exist because, quite frankly, we don't have adequate health care. Another services that would benefit from funding from a good, solid, and strong state budget are our mental health centers. And one of the things that we know, especially during this time of COVID, that people are experiencing all kinds of feelings and thoughts, some that they need help with, and yet we don't have a place for them to go. We don't have treatment to offer them, and primarily because those centers and places that they could go don't exist anymore. Why? Because we don't have the money in our budget to fund them. And then the infrastructure. I heard a woman say the other day that she felt really skeptical about going under a viaduct near her home because of the falling structure. Well, those are places that, first of all, should be more secure. People should not be afraid to go under. And then secondly, those are places that could, if being repaired, could offer a few things: more secure and safety in traveling and exposure to those areas. But guess what else it would do? It could help to provide jobs to make those repairs that are necessary. So those are just 3 things that are very important, and yet essential to our community. The education of our children, young people and even adults who desire to return to school. Our human services and healthcare that we all deserve to have good access to, and certainly not have them be closed, like Mercy Hospital, for example, which is on the block for being closed. And part of the reason, again, has to do with funding. And infrastructure, keeping our roads and our fairways safe for traveling and being exposed to. So there are many things that we could do with $3 billion, an additional $3 billion in our state budget. But the first thing that we have to do is pass the amendment. The first thing that we must do is vote yes for a fair tax. So simply put, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to me? That means that people like myself, like you perhaps, who make under or less than $250,000 per year would not get an increase in your taxes, and in some cases, maybe pay less. What that also means is that people who make $250,000 or more would then begin to pay their fair share, which is it really is the right thing to do.
Why was it so important for you to come here today and speak to this crowd?
To maintain the continuous struggle in Kenosha. A crime against humanity was here. Man shot in the back 7 times has not yet been indicted. We must have a better sense of justice than that. Breonna Taylor shot and killed in her sleep in Louisville. The killers are walking free. We must use our vote to put officials in office who are accountable to our sense of justice. That's why I'm here today.
Did you drive through Uptown at all and see what happened after Jacob Blake?
I've been here several times since it happened. What I want you to know is that we are not going to have our spirits broken by the mistakes. Nonviolence is a powerful weapon. We will use it. And I want you to really be a part of that struggle.
Do you think what happened in Louisville with no charges, or the charges that people wanted, is foreshadowing what is going to come here in terms of people are going to be disappointed?
People are disappointed. We overcome disappointment. We know that if we, in fact, let emotions drive us into violence, it becomes a commercial for Trump. As it became for Nixon in 1968, we must be disciplined in our struggle. 40-day countdown to the election of our lifetime, after the first in Chicago, after the 20th in Wisconsin. We're going to focus. What happened in Louisville was so unjust that the grand jury did not hear all the information. They came the man they were looking for that night was already in custody. They shot a woman in her sleep, and then they didn't call her name even in the charges. So there's something ugly about that, and yet somehow we're going to turn a minus into a plus.
Reverend Jackson, you've been paving the way, fighting for social justice your entire life. What do you want to say to young people who are going to be watching?
Don't give up. That when we fight back, we win. I was young in 1960. There was 3 blacks in the Congress. There 60. 40 Latinos, 20 Native Americans, 20 Asian Americans, 3. We have more weapons with which to fight. We marched in 60. We didn't have the right to vote. We can vote now. There are more whites than blacks today because we're building coalitions of justice. Coalition of conscience will take us forward.
Thank you.
As Louisville anticipates release of the secret grand jury recordings, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron admitted that no charges were recommended for Breonna Taylor's death.
Ultimately, our judgment is that the charge that we could prove at trial beyond a reasonable doubt was for wanton endangerment against Mr. Hankinson.
All along, we asked, was there any evidence even presented on Breonna Taylor's behalf?
Ben Crump represents Taylor's family.
We at least want to know that it's equal justice under the law for Black people as victims, not only when Black people are accused of crimes. We continue to ask for full transparency.
And so is a grand juror who filed a motion asking to speak publicly, accusing Attorney General Cameron of using the grand jurors as a shield to deflect accountability and responsibility. Kevin Glogauer represents the anonymous juror.
Again, my client's concern is making sure that there's the appropriate information for the public as a whole to see what's going on.
Louisville's incoming interim police chief, Yvette Gentry, the first female to hold the post, says her first order of business is removing the plywood from police headquarters.
Many in this community say they've lost confidence in their police officers. How do you rebuild that confidence?
I think it starts with me. Leading by example and being a woman of my word and being accessible to people. The door that you're feeling like you got to kick down is open.
I'm Todd Yeary, Senior Vice President of the Rainbow Push Coalition, with an update on the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville, Kentucky. Last week, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron announced that there would be no charges filed in the death of Breonna Taylor, a young Black woman who was killed in her apartment on March 13th of this year after Louisville Metro Police executed what was supposed to be a no-knock search warrant at her residence. Attorney General Cameron assumed responsibility for the investigation into Breonna Taylor's death after a conflict of interest forced recusal by the county prosecutor's office. In his initial press conference, Daniel Cameron assured all of us a full, thorough, and comprehensive investigation. However, after his prosecutor's presentation to the grand jury, no indictments were returned for the killing of Breonna Taylor. Only one officer, Detective Brett Hankinson, was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the first degree for shots that were fired into an adjacent neighbor's apartment. After approximately 40 rounds being fired that night, no charges tied to what happened inside apartment number 4, Breonna Taylor's home, were announced, setting off successive nights of protests. After over 110 days of constant and persistent protest, presence, and pressure in Jefferson Square Park, which is called Injustice Square Park, by those who continue to demand justice for Breonna, justice is still wanting. These protests have galvanized activists, members of faith communities, and interested members of the public to continue to demand transparency concerning the grand jury proceedings. After 5 nights of a state of emergency and a countywide 9 p.m. curfew, the curfew was lifted and an easing of the vehicular restrictions began. However, the pressure on Daniel Cameron did not ease, and it must not ease. At Detective Hankinson's arraignment, where he pleaded not guilty to the charges, the court requested that the grand jury transcript be presented to the court by Wednesday of this past week. It is unclear as to whether the court would then make the transcript publicly available at the time of this update. The Attorney General's announcement came just days after Mayor Greg Fisher announced a settlement in the wrongful death suit against the city. The settlement with Breonna Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, for $12 million includes a commitment to the implementation of significant police reforms. However, Ms. Palmer and other members of the family, the community, and the nation continue to demand indictments against the officers who executed the warrant that led to the killing of Breonna Taylor on March 13th, and a review of the grand jury process that fell well short of justice. There's been much concern and suspicion concerning how the grand jury process was managed and what evidence was actually presented by Cameron's prosecutors. So who is Daniel Cameron, the young African-American Republican Attorney General? He is a protege of Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader of the United States Senate. He won in a statewide race that saw at the same time the election of the current Democratic governor, Andy Beshear, who was the former Attorney General for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Even though Detective Hankerson has been terminated for wanton and reckless behavior on that night, the Attorney General's failure to return indictments consistent with even the most minimal interpretation of the evidence of the violence at Breonna Taylor's apartment, it confirms what we have already known: elections have consequences. Now, while Daniel Cameron is not on the ballot this time in Kentucky, justice, fairness, equity, and opportunity are. Whether you're in Kentucky or one of the other 49 states in the District of Columbia, the denial of justice in the Breonna Taylor case and in cities across the country warrants that we all must step up and ensure that our voices are heard. As we continue to raise our voices and demand justice for Breonna Taylor, we continue to monitor all aspects of this case and many others and demand fairness, fullness, and transparency, even as the federal investigation continues by the FBI and the determination about police officers who may have violated policy continues. Now, we must also make sure that we are ready to raise our voices at the ballot box. The need for law enforcement reform, along with addressing the myriad issues that are plaguing communities across the nation, cannot be underestimated. We demand justice for Breonna Taylor, for Jacob Blake, for Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, and so many others that we remember on today. But we also must demand justice for healthcare, housing, education, jobs, community development, criminal justice and law enforcement reform, voting rights, and fair representation. How do we make these demands? In two ways: being ready and being counted. The Rainbow Push Coalition is working to ensure that everyone is counted during this census period, as the courts continue to ensure that this administration does not cut short the census counting period. It is incumbent upon all of us to be counted. Why? Because representation and resources are based on being counted. Secondly, everybody needs to register to vote, get educated about the voting process, and cast a ballot during this election cycle. Whether you vote by mail or in person, early voting or on election day, there's too much at stake to sit this election out. Here's what you can do. Go to BeCountedRPC.com. BeCountedRPC.com. There, you can verify your voter registration. You can register to vote, get information about the mail-in voting in your state, and get information about all of our voter initiatives in partnership with the Transformative Justice Coalition. And you can make sure that you are counted in the census. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can demand justice for Breonna and George and Rashard and Jacob and their families and communities. We will continue to monitor these important justice issues. We will continue to fight for what is right. Remember, BeCountedRPC.com. Go there right now, register to vote, be counted in the census, and always remember to keep hope alive.
With 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules.
Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here, it wouldn't be 200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw.
All right, gentlemen,
which was heavily
Mr. President,
you would have been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
Mr. President, as a moderator, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
Let the presidents go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on.
We were talking originally about the Supreme Court here. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. Vote now. Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
would you answer that
the question is
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Right. Gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
booming. He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact, when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're number two.
We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch.
All right,
gentlemen. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Why is it? Just out of curiosity. The mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President.
Totally,
Mr. President, please.
Totally discredited.
You have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
with no job?
My son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating.
Last night we saw Bulligan ranting, raging, temper tantrums as a virgin, racism and symptoms as a strategy. Trump is launching a revolution against American values, dreams, and hopes, undermining institutions and calling for violence at the polls. Stand by on the ways done by the call of violence. We've seen these men in the black suits and their arms brandished in Louisville and sold around the country. You'll speak up now if ever hold their peace.
Last night should have made three things clear. Number one, at this point, there should be nobody that's undecided about voting. There should be nobody that's unclear about who they should vote for at this time. Number two, Donald Trump purposely sent a message to white supremacists and extremists like the Proud Boys.
This is no hour for silence. This is no hour for lethargic
or inactivity.
Right.
We've got to put Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Jacob Blake on this ballot and send a signal ourselves. The president's not the only one that can send a signal.
Right.
We can let our light so shine
Right.
that this world and this country can know that we've had enough. We've got to put social justice on the ballot and take white supremacists out.
They used to say we were just 3/5 of a man, and we had to fight to be fully recognized. Back then, being counted meant marches, pickets, jail cells, and worse. One way you can show we count in less than 10 minutes is to take the 2020 census. Be a warrior for your community. Be counted and make certain adequate funds and political representation are allocated to your state and your neighborhood. Just select one of these easy options. By phone, call 844-330-2020. Online at mycensus2020.gov or simply mail in your survey. Never forget, you are somebody. Don't delay. Take the census today.
I am somebody.
Dr. Kim, I went to jail with a group of 7 students, July 17, 1960, almost 60 years ago. We never stopped moving. I lost a few jail cells and death. We never stopped moving. I thought it was time to write some of it down so the older generation can learn how we did and what we did and how global it was. Whether speaking about Mandela in South Africa, India, Qatar, about Gandhi in India, here at home. This book tells the story, so please get it and give it to your friends. Read it, let's argue about it, let's discuss it.
Yep, so the book is Keeping Hope Alive, Sermons and Speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It's quite a good collection. You know, we've got sermons and speeches from around the globe because you have made such a global impact, not just here in the US, but around the world.
Thank you for tuning in to our International Saturday morning broadcast. We need your support. Here are ways to give to Rainbow Push Coalition. Text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444 to support the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push Coalition. When you shop, Amazon gives. Visit Amazon Smile and select Push for Excellence as your charitable organization by starting your shopping at smile.amazon.com.
Get involved with the movement.
Somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Join the movement.
If you're not a member, become a member.
I am somebody. Fighting the most important battles for freedom and justice for all.
You made us change. Oh, trying to bring closer.
Join Rainbow Push.
But you're not pushing me away. Join